Okay, welcome one and all. Our today's topic is about the lecture number third, that is the plant response to greenhouse environment. Now, what is the greenhouse environment and what are the different parameters of the greenhouse environment that need to be studied for the cultivation of the crops inside the protected structure or inside the greenhouse structure. Now, here some environmental parameters are enlisted. The first one is the light here, then the second one is the temperature, then relative humidity, then ventilation, and then carbon dioxide, right? Now, how these crops are influenced with crop production and with yield, right? The productivity of crop is influenced not only the productivity of the crop is influenced not only by the heredity of the crop, right? Not only by selecting the higher yielding variety, or not only by supplying the irrigation or fertilizer, right? Not only by this means the yield is not increased, but need to be control the microclimatic condition of the crop, right? The microclimatic condition, and the microclimatic condition within the structure or inside the structure is called as the environmental control. And for that, various microclimatic factors, that is the light, temperature, then air composition. Now air composition is related with the CO2 concentration of uh, CO2 concentration in the air of the structure, right? As compared to the open field, we can control these environmental parameters inside the structure. But in the open field, we can control the only root media, right? Root media, that is the only soil, and that may be by tillage or some by providing some irrigation or by providing some fertilizer applications. But we can't control the microclimatic parameters or environmental parameters in the open field, and that is why it is easy to control the microclimatic parameters, because the structure has some closed boundary. The greenhouse structure has some closed boundaries, and as the boundaries are closed, or the environmental area of the structure is closed, there is a possibility, it is possible to control the environmental parameters. Now the first important parameter is the light. The first important parameter is the light. The visible light of solar radiation is a source of energy for plants, right? The visible light that is available from the sun, or also called as the solar light, is useful or needful for the plant to produce the energy. Now, the light found useful to complete the photosynthesis reaction of the crops, right? The solar light found useful to complete the photosynthesis reaction of the plants. The photosynthesis reaction is given here, that is the CO2, means that is the carbon dioxide, with water and with light energy, right? Light energy means that is the available from the solar radiation in presence of the chlorophyll pigment, right? Chlorophyll is a pigment available in the leaves of the plant, in addition with the presence of plant nutrients that are available from the roots, and it results in the formation of the carbohydrates and oxygen, right? It results in the formation of the carbohydrates stored in the plant, and the oxygen which is released in the uh, transpiration system of the plant. Now the light or the visible light which is needful for the photosynthesis reaction is called as the visible light. Not all the solar radiations are useful for the completion of the photosynthesis reaction, but only the visible spectrum of the light, only the visible spectrum of the light is useful, and that visible spectrum of the light ranges from 500 to 700 nanometer. This range is given is in nanometer from 500 from 400 to 700 nanometer. This much spectrum of the solar radiation is called as the visible light, and it includes yellow, violet radiation, then blue radiation, then blue-green radiation, then green radiation, then green yellow radiation, orange radiation, and the red radiation. These are the spectrums of the visible lights, and it ranges from 400 to 700 nanometer. Then the light spectrum having wavelength, this is the wavelength, having the wavelength less than 400 nanometer, 400 nanometer. This light spectrum is called as the ultraviolet radiations, are called as the ultraviolet radiations, and the radiations having wavelength more than 700 nanometer are called as the infrared radiations, Now, and these both radiations, that is the ultraviolet radiation and infrared radiations, are not useful for the photosynthesis reaction, are not useful for the photosynthesis reaction. Now, temperature. The rate of reactions, the rate of some reactions, that is the metabolic reactions of the plants, are controlled with the temperature severity, If the temperature is below the optimum desired level of the plant, then there may be freezing inside the cell structure. There may be freezing inside the uh, tissues of the plant, and to avoid such happening, the optimum temperature is controlled within the structure. The optimum temperature is controlled within the structure. The rate of reaction controlled by the enzyme often doubles or triples for each rise of temperature by 10 degrees Celsius, right? The rate of reaction controlled by the enzymes present in the plant, and then that enzymes may double or triples the reaction rate for each for or per 10 degrees Celsius increase in temperature until an optimum temperature is reached, and that is why it is needful to control the temperature in the optimum range of the plant within the greenhouse structure. In general, in greenhouse crops grown at a delayed temperature, which is 3 degrees Celsius to 6 degrees Celsius higher than the night temperature on cloudy days, and 8 degrees Celsius higher on clear days. Means These are the general range of the temperature given as compared to the night temperatures and the during the clear sky temperature conditions. And with CO2 enrichment, the day temperature may be higher by 3 degrees Celsius. Means this line means that during the daytime, as compared to the open field, the temperature within the greenhouse structure is about 3 degrees Celsius higher, 3 degrees Celsius higher than the open field temperature because of the higher CO2 concentration within the structure, right? The air present in the structure having the higher concentration of the CO2, and as the CO2 concentration is higher, which results in the higher air temperature, which results in the higher air temperature. And during the night time, the night temperature of the greenhouse crop is generally in the range of 7 degrees Celsius to 21 degrees Celsius. And this range varies according to the cultivated crop. Then relative humidity. Now, relative humidity means it is the presence of the water vapors. It is the presence of the water vapors given in the atmosphere, or the amount of water vapor, mostly in kg, present in unit volume of the atmosphere, and that is why it may be given into the kg per meter cube, most time into kg per meter cube. Humidity. And when we compare it with the saturation condition, capacity, then it is also given in percentage. For most of the crops, the accepted range of relative humidity is between 50 to 80%. For most of the crops, the accepted or the preferred relative humidity need to be maintained within the structure is between 50 to 80%. However, for plant propagation work, relative humidity up to 90% may be desirable. But if the propagation of the plants or the propagation season or during the propagation season, the relative humidity should be maintained up to 90%. And then ventilation. Now, ventilation is necessary to maintain the concentration of various gases within the structure, concentration of various gases in the greenhouse air. And that may be the gases are important gases are the carbon dioxide and oxygen. Oxygen. And also it is important to control the temperature within the structure, The air temperature above 35 degrees Celsius are generally not suited for crops in greenhouse. Means if the temperature tends to cross the 35 degrees Celsius or attempt to beyond the 35 degrees Celsius, that time there is need of ventilation purpose. And to maintain the ventilation, some blowers or some exhaust fans arrangement is provided. Right here the line is mentioned that the ventilation in the greenhouse can either be natural or forced, right? The natural ventilation means this ventilation is completed with the natural airflow, but instead but the rise in temperature is above or above the natural airflow condition, then in such a cases, the forced ventilation system, the forced circulation system has to be adopted, and that forced circulation system comes with some exhaust fans or some blower arrangement, or with some blower arrangement. In case of small greenhouse structures, that is the span less than 6 meter width, natural ventilation can be quite effective during spring and autumn season. However, the forced ventilation system means the ventilation system with blowers and exhaust fans is essential for precise control of the temperature, relative humidity, and carbon dioxide levels. Means to maintain these three parameters, that is the temperature, humidity, and the carbon dioxide concentration, ventilation control is useful, right? Humidity means the presence of water vapors in the atmosphere, right? That is given, that is the humidity. And relative humidity means uh, with compared with the concentrated condition, right? With concentrated condition or with saturated condition, right? Means the absolute humidity with respect to the saturated humidity. The absolute humidity with respect to the saturated humidity is called the relative humidity. Then carbon dioxide. Now, how the carbon dioxide concentration is useful in the greenhouse structures? Because if the concentration of the CO2 within the structure is higher, there will be more metabolism within the plant tissues. There will be more metabolism in the plant tissues, and during the photosynthesis reaction, there is more production of the carbohydrates. There is more production of the carbohydrates because CO2 is needful in the photosynthesis reaction, right? CO2 is needful in the photosynthesis reaction, and that is why it is desired to enrich the CO2 concentration within the greenhouse structure. During normal conditions or under normal conditions, CO2 present in the CO2 gas present in the atmosphere is slightly above 0.03%. It's slightly above 0.03%. During the daytime, when photosynthesis occurs under natural light, the plants in the greenhouse drawn down the level of CO2 to up to level of CO2 to below 200 ppm. Means the concentration of the gas in the air, the concentration of the CO2 in the greenhouse air is up to 200 ppm, under this circumstance, means under this condition, infiltration or ventilation increases CO2 level, right? CO2 level, where outside air is brought into the maintain the CO2 at ambient level, right? Means in this structure, as the structure is enclosed, or the boundaries of the structures are enclosed, and there is continuation of the photosynthesis reaction. There is continuation of the photosynthesis reaction. Plants consume the carbon dioxide gas present in the greenhouse air, and that is why the concentration of this gas declines up to 200 ppm. it declines up to 200 ppm. And in such a condition or in such a circumstance, it is essential to increase the concentration of CO2 in the greenhouse air. And to achieve this desire, ventilation is needful because the CO2 gas concentration in the ambient air or in the surrounding air is much or slightly higher, and that is why the natural air is introduced into the greenhouse structure, right? And if the CO2 gas is less than the ambient level, right, means there is a deficiency of the CO2 gas in the greenhouse air, then this condition will retard the plant growth. Then this condition may retard the plant growth. Why it retards the plant growth? Because CO2 gas will not be available to complete the photosynthesis reaction, and that is why it may retard the plant growth, and that is why the CO2 concentration in the structure is enriched with ventilation, and that is why the ventilation is essential in the greenhouse structure. Okay, thank you.